All right, boys and girls, we're going to take a look at the United States Constitution, how it's set up, what it actually does, some of the principles that guide the Constitution, and kind of, this framework for our government. Okay, so first thing, the introduction, or the preamble, as it's called, of the Constitution really outlines these overarching principles of the Constitution. So they're trying to create a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic peace, common defense of the people, and general welfare of all citizens. And again, these blessings of freedom and liberty to people that live here now and to posterity, which would be the people coming next. Okay. And kind of just sets out this big vision of why we have the United States Constitution. Now remember, we had the Articles of Confederation. That did not work very well. So they're really trying to set this framework, which has been around for 230 years. So it's pretty solid. Okay, so the preamble is kind of sets out the purpose of the Constitution. Okay, now the bulk of the Constitution is what's referred to as the Articles. So these are kind of like the body. If this is an essay, this is the body of the Constitution. The largest article is Article 1, which sets up the legislative branch. Okay, and we're going to really dive into these branches more, but to kind of give you the broad structure of the Constitution. Article 1 sets up a bicameral, two-house legislature. We kind of looked at this already. Two houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. Which again we've had since the foundation of the Constitution. Okay, so House of Representatives, this is the Virginia plan, so it's based on population. Okay, there's 435 members. They're all served 2-year terms. They're considered the voice of the people because again they only represent their district, so they're much closer to their constituents. They're up for re-election every 2 years, and Wisconsin, based on population, has 8 representatives. Mark Pocan is Beloit's representative. He represents the 2nd district. So if you look at, our district here, which includes Madison, but also, goes all the way up into Sauk County, a little bit of Greene County, very rural. So when I talked about it being the voice of the people, Mark Pocan really needs to focus on issues that matter the most to people in District 2. So Madison being the biggest city, but then Beloit is the 2nd largest city in his district. So you think of some of the issues with urban issues, racial issues, issues around poverty. This is going to be much different than, say, the District 7, which is way northern Wisconsin, Lake Superior area, very rural. So again, they really need to focus on what is most important to the people of the district they represent. Okay. Now the Senate, this is equal in all 50 states. There are 2 for every state. There's 100 members total, and ours are Tammy Baldwin right here and Ron Johnson from Appleton. So we have a Republican in Ron Johnson and a Democrat in Tammy Baldwin. So they really need to represent the entire state. Look out for the best interests of the entire state as a whole versus really just focusing on the smaller area like the House of Representatives. So this is the New Jersey plan, equal representation for all states. Okay. Now, what powers that the legislative branch in Congress has are really outlined in Article 1, Section 8. Okay. So they have enumerated powers which are specifically listed in the Constitution. So, run the post office, declare war, coin money. They're very specific. Okay, but where they get most of their powers is implied powers, and it's something called the Elastic Clause, which says that Congress can make any laws that they feel are necessary and proper. So what does that mean? You think of a rubber band, it's elastic. You can really stretch this. If it says you're supposed to look out for the American people, well, let's stretch that, and this means we need to have, more health care options or, certain legal protections that are implied and they're not actually listed in the Constitution. So this here, again, this is important, the elastic clause, where the vast majority of Congress's power comes from. Okay, and their main duty, their main responsibility, what they do is pass laws. They legislate. Legislation is laws. They are the ones that create and pass the laws. And we'll look at that deeper when we really dive into the legislative branch itself. Okay, so these are all the enumerated powers, very specific. Coin money, borrow money. All right, provide and maintain a navy, very specific. Other than that, it's pretty open with the implied powers. Okay, Article 2 is going to set up the executive branch, and really, we saw the weaknesses with the Articles of Confederation. You couldn't get anything passed. You didn't have this strong figurehead to kind of unite the country. So this position of the president is created as a response to the issues of the Articles. Now, the powers that are granted to the president are very broad. Okay, they're very vague and open to interpretation. Okay, it says they're supposed to protect life, liberty, property of citizens, uphold the Constitution. So really, where Congress's powers are very specific at times, the presidential powers are kind of open to interpretation. Now, this can cause problems, with certain executive orders, and the president does this, and Obama with DACA, and people said, can he do this? Well, it was constitutional. Or you had Trump, doing the travel ban to certain Middle Eastern countries. Can he do this? Yes. I mean, according to the Constitution, since it's not specific, a lot of these are open to interpretation. Okay. Now, the third article sets up the judicial branch, and there are two sets of courts. There are state courts and federal courts. Federal courts are going to deal with constitutional issues. So again, the Constitution is a federal law. Okay, so any issue that's going to go through the federal court system is going to be looking at constitutional law, and then state courts deal with state constitutions, state laws, local laws, and this is all established in Article 3 of the Constitution. Okay, and their main duty, is to review laws, make sure they're constitutional, make sure that the laws are being properly interpreted. Okay, so you have the Congress will pass the laws, the president will carry out the laws, execute the laws, or the executive branch, and then the judicial branch will make sure that the laws are constitutional. And this is all this system of checks and balances and separation of power to make sure that each branch is working cohesively. Okay. Now, to amend the Constitution, there's quite a process. So the Constitution is considered a living document. It can be changed. It has changed. And there's two methods. Okay, there's the formal method and the informal method. Okay, so the formal amendment process, which is set out in Article 5, if you want to change the Constitution, the actual wording, okay, you have to have 2/3 vote of each house. So 2/3 of the House of Representatives, 2/3 of the Senate. Then that constitutional amendment goes to the states, and you have to get 3/4 of all the state legislatures to ratify it. This is very difficult. Okay, they can call a national convention. This has not happened. 33 amendments have made it out of the House, but only 27 of those have been passed. So we have 27 amendments to the Constitution. So when we pass a formal amendment, we actually change the wording of the Constitution. So we'll look deeper at these 27 amendments more, but just to know, to change it, it's got to be a supermajority. It's not the full unanimous like the Articles of Confederation, but it's still very difficult. You have to have state input and federal input as well. So formal amendments are going to be actually changing the words. Informal, okay? This is just done on a day-to-day basis. Informal amendments do not change the wording. It changes how they are interpreted or how they're applied. So there's a question, it says, have we had more informal or formal amendments? Informal by thousands. I mean, this is done thousands and thousands of times. Formally, It's only been done 27 times. But how the Constitution is interpreted happens every day, depending on who's in power, how they're reading, interpreting, the judges and the justice system. Okay, so that's the basic outline of the Constitution. Okay, and we're going to dive into the 6 principles of the Constitution later, and the branches later. So have a great day. See you guys later.